I'm pretty excited to try the extraction technique once more that we used for making the modular wall asset. It is such an interesting technique indeed, so definitely worth reiterating. First, allow me to quickly isolate the region that we will use for extracting the mesh in Blender. So that part of the window, slightly larger than the frame itself to give us some room to work. Invert and filter the selection, so we're left only with that portion of the window. Before it can be taken to Blender, it needs to be simplified. Right now it's a little bit too large for serving as a proxy mesh. 10 million triangles will potentially be pretty unresponsive in Blender, at least that's my usual fear. So 2 million polygons then, sounds better. Boom, taking the model into Blender. Here it is, our proxy 2 million polys mesh. Let's jump into the solid shading mode with the vertex color set as a preview. Then what? Tab into the edit mode, select these outliers. X to delete, select vertices. As a quick reminder, we have done this workflow already in the course. The workflow of turning the photoscanned data into the 360 degrees solid mesh. So let's follow through the steps once again. First, enter the sculpting mode. Let's search for the mask tool, or I should have said mask brush. Set the strength to 1. The fall off should be pretty hard. We can change it from here. Right now it's set to constant even. And the goal that I have set is to extract a part of the wall that wouldn't look too even, that would look like it could be a separate asset. So what I'm doing here is looking at the bricks and trying to follow their contours. That's why the vertex colors are must-have, and in order to have the vertex colors that are informative, the model should be dense enough to support it. So I think starting with the million polygons is quite enough resolution to work with anyway. Again, it's important to keep the structure of the model in mind. Here it is defined by the bricks, so I'm pretty careful to make sure I follow the brick outlines there. We can turn the single color preview on to see where our selection went crazy. And once we nailed the masking, it's a matter of entering the mask menu and selecting mask extract. All options set to their default values except the extract as solid. I usually turn it off, otherwise it adds the solidify modifier, which we don't need anyway at this stage. So that's our mesh. It's worth cleaning up ever so slightly. Tab into the edit mode, select the floaters. Here, here, and here. And maybe this clump as well, X, and delete the vertices. Now it should be ready for modification. First, we need to make it solid somehow. Aside from using the solidify modifier, we can just select all vertices manually. Then in the search menu, I'm searching for select boundary and select boundary loop. With the boundary loop still selected, E for extrusion, extrude it outwards like this. And from here we can start using the mirror modifier to turn this asset into symmetrical and hopefully solidified object. First I'm going to create the empty object that would serve as the origin point for the mirror modifier. Then add the modifier itself. Click on the eyedropper, select the empty object. Everything, including axis, bisect, and flip, everything should be set to X in this case. Then it's a matter of adjusting the position of the mirror object, something like that. And that's pretty much the mission accomplished moment for the mirror modifier. From here, I'm looking forward to adjusting the mesh. For example, recovering the top part, which is a little bit weird right now. I'm reconstructing it using the cube. As you know, you can reconstruct pretty much anything with a certain number of cubes. I'm joining it with the original model. And after joining two objects together, it's time to remesh it all. Using the remesh modifier, I'm choosing the voxel mode. Selecting the right voxel size is usually done by eyeballing it. So 0.01, is it enough geometry to work with? My guess that it is. Now these modifiers have fulfilled their role, we can apply everything. Ironically, we still have to apply the mirroring operation after each successful remeshing and stuff like that. So let's do it once again. The mirror object should be the same and the settings as well. What I'm going to do next is create a new vertex group. This vertex group, just as a quick reminder, will be used to control the strength of the shrink wrap effect. So jumping into the weight paint mode, the weight set to 1, let's quickly paint the front section of the object that should be influenced by the shrink wrap modifier as opposed to the back and the side. The red color represents the weight of 1 and then it gradually falls off to the blue color, which is the weight of 0. And speaking about zeroing out the weight, I think that the sides should be practically all blue. We wouldn't want them to be affected by the shrink wrap modifier. No, I don't think so. Effectively, we have only left the weights of 1 at the frontal section of the object, and everything else, thanks to the vertex weight of 0, should be practically excluded. Now we can toggle the visibility of the high poly model back on, select the remeshed model, add the shrink wrap modifier, and the target should be the high poly one. Now the visibility can be switched back off. Our vertex group should be selected there in the drop-down menu. And yeah, we can tell that the modifier has helped to transfer some resolution from the high poly model indeed. The mode can be set to project. It is a slightly more detailed variation of the effect, I think. The axis should be set to negative and positive, and limit it can be used to, well, to limit the amount of displacement going on. Once again, it's crucial to limit the effect. Something like 0.01 perhaps. I'm still not super satisfied with how it looks though, but let's try to crank up the resolution by adding the subdivision modifier and placing it just before the shrink wrap one. That's how we can control resolution basically. I don't think that I'm satisfied with how shrink wrap looks though. I will change the mode to nearest surface point. It is slightly safer this way. Now everything can be collapsed once again. Right click, convert to mesh. And this way we can help the model to get a new life, full of adventures. Back into the sculpting mode, let's select clay strips and start working on the silhouette of the mesh. It can definitely receive some extra polish. It looks pillowy to me. The scrape brush may come in handy. It helps with flattening out the surfaces, and you may say carving it out like a stone or something like that. If there was a slider that went from the chiseled look to the marshmallow look, the scrape brush would help to move it over to the left, all the way to the chiseled look. From my point of view, the hard surface definition provided by such brushes goes a long way in helping to sell, how should I put it, the high definition look of the model. Ultimately, it boils down to the definition of the silhouette. Anyway, it's time to decimate the model for the final use. That's what the decimate modifier is meant for. Just a matter of picking the right ratio depending on the poly budget that you have. I wouldn't make it much higher than 10k triangles for this type of asset though, maybe 15k max. It's a matter of personal preference what baking application to use. We can either do it, in my opinion, in RC or XNormal. In RC we just have to choose the targets and the source objects and then press one button, more often than not. It will get unwrapped automatically in this case if we haven't done the UV map in Blender. Reproject, create UV coordinates, wait a few seconds, and here we go. Let's check it out, where it is. Yeah, we need to click on it. With a freshly baked model brought to Blender, it's time to copy the mirror modifier once again. Remember, after each operation practically, the mirror modifier has to be brought back. So with two objects selected, Ctrl+C, copy modifiers, copy the mirror modifier. Toggle the visibility back on if it has been turned off. So we have successfully copied the baked textures. There are some problems though if you take a closer look, like the side. There wasn't reliable texture data on the side, so we need to introduce the second shader if we choose to solve it using the second shader, okay? So this time, just for the change, let's use vertex color as a mask, not the image texture like we did before. To paint vertex colors, head over to the vertex paint menu. Here we can just fill it in with certain color. To use a bucket tool approach, go paint, set vertex colors, and it will be filled with the active one. Let's bucket fill everything with black though. So it is our base state, meaning no mix at all. And then let's use the white color to reveal the second material. Right now we don't use the real second material, obviously. For debug purposes we have chosen the pure color, just to see what we are doing, I guess. And once the vertex mask has been painted, let's replace the proxy material with the real one. Any kind of seamless PBR shader from roughly the same setting would work. This one consists of the diffuse and normal map, and this is the tarmac shader, I believe. As it was designed to be used as a seamless texture without any UV map, let's switch the texture coordinate to object and enable the blended box mapping for that matter. From flat to box, change the blend factor ever so slightly. That will make the transition between the box faces smoother. The tiling can be adjusting according to taste from the mapping node. Now we can keep painting the mask, the bottom portion of the object, stuff like that. Shouldn't take much time. And once we are finished with the mask, the next thing worth doing is tweaking the color. It doesn't look to me like it plays very well with the original material. So let's navigate to the second one and drop the mix RGB node there. Click on the color on the eyedropper tool and sample some brownish color of the bricks. The mode should be set to multiply, and the rest is a matter of massaging the color until it looks right. Maybe a more yellowish saturated version of the color will work better here. Actually, I think that's a good example of why we should care about color management and about balancing the white point. Otherwise, you can see that the materials like this tarmac without the albedo texture being color balanced look a little bit bluish in comparison with the materials that were color balanced.